We'll right away go into the questions. We have two questions here. And then so some Advaita proponents talk of the existence of the causal body that lives on after the death of the body mind, and depending on one's karma resurfaces in another body or birth. Any thoughts on how to reconcile this with this conflicting concept? Again, some Advaita proponents talk of the existence of the causal body that lives on after the death of the body mind, and depending on one's karma resurfaces in another body/birth. Any thoughts on how to reconcile with this conflicting concept? So when we talk of karma and this idea of rebirth and the causal body that's going through rebirth, there is the provisional reality to it, but there is the underlying fiction behind it. So, how do we understand this? And that's really the question, how do we reconcile it? Because the direct pointer, first of all, is that there is no separate self here and now. Because that very notion of a separate self denies non-duality. Right? So non-duality means, to put it in a very simple way, God alone is. That's the right, simple way to put it. And it is described in different ways by different texts. But the most important thing is the direct recognition, as we pointed out, that the idea of a separate self is only based on the superimposition of various memories and identities onto the sense of existence that brings forth a sense of me. So the idea of all identities are coming forth because of this superimposition. And when that is seen as false, by surrendering the false self, then what remains is just the very ground of existence and the intelligence that comes forth from it, which is what appears as all the various bodies and people and everything there is. So in Gita, for example, the words used for this is Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is the ground of being, which is the unchanging, ever-present reality. And Prakriti is the intelligence, which is another word for nature, by the way, that comes forth as all the various three gunas and the various bodies, people, places, things, all of it. So the idea of a separation within that as me and you is coming forth only because of false identification with thought. So when we say causal body, the causal body is the word used for referring to the seed of this separation. That's what the causal body refers to, right? So in Sanskrit, the word used is karana sharira. Right? Karana means cause, same thing, causal body. So we have, it is said at a very simple level, if you look at it, there are three levels of our body. There is the gross physical body, which is called as sthula sharira. There is the subtle body, which is called sukshma sharira, the mind. And there is the causal body, which is the karana or the seed. And this seed is what comes up every time and brings forth the sense of identification as me, right? So before going to the question of rebirth, if we really look at it from the perspective of what happens between deep sleep and the next morning, right? We see the same phenomena play out, first of all. So in deep sleep, the gross body and the subtle body are not experienced at all. They are both in total abeyance. But it doesn't mean that we wake up out of it free of the me. We wake up and instantly we identify with the ego and all of it. It is because the causal body, which is what is called a karna sharira, is the seed of ignorance that is there, that comes up. Right? So then there is this theory that the same causal body, upon the death of the body, remains and takes on another body and becomes another body, and so on, right? So just as between yesterday and today, is there the same person here, or is there just an imagination of the same person? Right? So I went into deep sleep. The body and the subtle body, the mind, all were not recognized. But when I woke up in the morning, I feel like I'm the same person that I was yesterday. It is in that way that we can understand also upon death. We think I'm the same person who lived that life that is living this life now. But that is only provisional, because even between yesterday and today, there is nobody here as a separate individual, let alone between this life and apparent next life or past life. So provisionally, there is this admission of this apparent continuation. But in actuality, there is nobody. So this is why, for instance, when Ramana Maharshi was asked about past life or next life, his response was always very precise and beautiful. He said, find out if there is anyone having a life now. Right? That is the direct pointer. The provisional pointer is there is an apparent self who lived past life, who is living this life, who will live the next life. And that is the apparent journey of this causal body and all the rest, right? And at a provisional level, there is some validity to that. But the important thing is to deny that now. The freedom from that comes only now, by recognizing that there is nobody here, even now. So a very simple example of understanding this is, it's maybe a crude example, but it's a example that people resonate with. Uh, let's say take your favorite trilogy like Star Wars. Okay, there are three movies of Star Wars, or more movies than three, any number, and the same character goes through many movies. So within the universe of the movie, there is a cause and effect relationship between the characters from one movie to the other movie, right? And yet, in actuality, all that is there is only the vision of the director. There is nobody there as Luke Skywalker or whatever except the director projecting it, right? So if this character thinks I am a separate individual, I am a separate independent entity, then that is the ignorance. And he thinks I had a past life in the previous movie and I'm going to have a next life. So he thinks he is the agency that is having the cause and effect relationship between his past life and next life. Provisionally, that is true, right? Because that's how apparently the movie universe works. But in actuality, it is the vision of the director. He chooses when to end a character, when to keep a character. Because it's the one director that comes as all that there is. He is the Sith, he is the Jedi, right? To use that metaphor. So, in the same way, provisionally, there is an apparent journey of this so called individual, like a character in a movie, going from life to life, going from one movie to another movie. But to give that reality is to deny the ultimate truth. If we, because there is no freedom for that, to the recognition that there is no separate character other than the very light in the screen can happen only now. It is not that the character has to do a bunch of things in order to realize that, right? So the core fallacy we have, that's why, is we think I have to journey through time, through many lifetimes to realize this true nature. But in reality, you are already that. So the character in the movie cannot reach the realization that he is just a character through events in the movie. It is only through stepping out, right? That stepping out is non-duality, not the apparent duality within the movie continues. And that's why Advaita proponents, as you wrote, are very different from the one who is truly abiding in Advaita. So Ramana Maharishi would not talk about all this because he would just say, find out if you are a separate character right now. That is the direct pointer. Doesn't mean this is wrong. You see that you ask the question how to reconcile. So now you are able to reconcile, right? It doesn't mean it's wrong. Provisionally, it can have a truth. We don't know. I know for a fact that between yesterday and today, there seems to be a continuity which is created by the mind. The same can be apparently true between one life and next life, and there are people who claim that to be the case. There are even studies of people who remember their past lives. There are many instances, so it could be possible the universe has enough intelligence to make these things happen, right? The same seed of individuality can persist between lifetimes apparently, but that is the illusion of individuality.
So what is it provisional on? When you say provisional, what do you mean by that? Like this analogy is perfect, the trilogy analogy. But what do do you mean by
Provisional
provision?
meaning um, it is like the answer yes and no. It is true and not true. You know what I
That's the
mean?
hard pill to swallow.
Provisional means it's only within the context of this. Like if you ask me whether, uh, like as I said, the example of, let's say, Luke Skywalker had a previous this, yes, provisionally it's true. I mean, he did something
Yeah, no, I
in
see.
the previous movie, and therefore he is facing the consequence in this movie. And whatever he does in this movie, he will face the consequence in next movie. So provisionally it's true, but in actuality, is it true? Right? Because in actuality, that's why the first verse of Upadeshasaram, Ramana Maharshi writes very beautifully to answer this very question. He says, Karturagya prapyate phalam karma kim param karma tajjadam. He says, actions and results are as ordained by the universal ordainer. Karta means the one who ordains everything. Karma kim param. He says, so is cause and effect. That's what your question is about. Is it really supreme? He says, no, it is jadam. It is just inanimate. Because even in the context of this movie example, it is, even in that, it is George Lucas who determined what happens to Luke Skywalker, not the actions of Luke Skywalker. Apparently it did, but who actually determined it, right? So it is one vision that made that movie universe. That's just a, I mean, it's a crude example, but
Yeah,
hopefully
I
it
get it.
resonates, right?
But it helps bring out the point.
Right. So in this universe too, with the universal ordainer, it is the will of the ordainer that makes everything move. And there is no separate individual here except as characters in this universal play. So that character assigning itself individuality and thinking I'm journeying from one life to another is the fiction created by the individual. Just as if Skywalker would imagine that I have done this, therefore I am getting this and I will get this and blah, blah, blah. It's only apparently true, it's actually false. So that's why Ramana says, Kartu Agya. It is only by the ordainer that it happens, not by the action. So your action is only an apparent manifestation of what is ordained. What is ordained is what is ordained. So the realization comes when you recognize, that's why by direct inquiry, do I exist now as a separate individual? That's what we were pointing out in the last session too. When you recognize that there is nobody here other than the ground of existence itself and the intelligence that comes forth from it, then this illusion of a separate individual goes away. Then there is no continuity psychologically. Physically, there is continuity, all that goes on, whatever. Even that is only apparent. As you know, science says that in every 6 months, the entire body is recycled. So there is, we think it's the same body, but it's really not. It's just constantly changing all the time. But psychologically, there is no continuity between last moment and this moment to accept the fiction we create that I am me having this experience. It is thought, what is there now is energy, thought, intellect, all that is there. But all this is brought together into this false sense of me. And it says, I have done this, I'm going to do this, right? You are taking ownership of action. And that ownership of action in turn makes you feel I am the enjoyer of the results of the action. And I will therefore get credit for it or blame for it and all of that. So to be freed of that is to be free of all this. So the Advaita proponents may talk about it, but that's really not Advaita at all. It's only provisional.
So everything is clubbed under Advaita. That's the whole problem, right? So,
See, the word doesn't matter.
yeah, I
As
know
you
it
know,
doesn't,
the word is not
for
the thing.
people starting out, it's all under one umbrella.
Doesn't matter.
Until you
See,
dig deeper.
leave it. Yeah, exactly. So that's why the what matters is the inquiry. See, the word Advaita was not used by Buddha, but he
But it
was,
was the same
huh?
as, but it was essentially
Same,
the same.
same. The word Advaita was not used by, I'm sure, like there were Sufis who came upon this, there were others who came. So it doesn't matter, right? The word is not the thing. The thing is that which cannot be captured by any word. And that is what we are pointing to. When you recognize that the false me that I am creating through identification is what is causing all of this, right? And then religion comes in and says, oh, you have a past life, you have next life, you'll go to heaven, you'll go to hell. It's the same thing. Nobody has seen heaven or hell. Nobody has seen past life or next life, right? Doesn't it's but what is real is what is now. So this is theory of particular kind, and it may be provisionally true, as I said, right? Because there is enough research into such things, and there may be such continuity apparently across different lifetimes and so on. But that denies the real non duality. Because real non duality is that there is no separate individual even now, let alone past life, next life, all this story. So when you leave all that out, by staying clear on the inquiry of what is now, then you're free. So this is not wrong, but it's not right either. It's just what is.
So, in other words, you stay true to your path now, and even if there is such a thing, because no one knows, right? It doesn't matter really.
Doesn't matter. See, like I said, what you know for a fact is you think you are the same person yesterday and today. Is that even true?
Biologically, no.
Right. Biologically, no is different.
Yeah.
But even psychologically, right? You think you are the same. Like you think there is
Oh, I
this.
see. So
You see what I'm
thinking,
saying?
yeah.
The sense of self you carry. That's just what you think. In reality, all there is just all this intelligence of the senses and the body and thought and intellect, everything. But where is the me that you think you are, right? Between yesterday and today, even. So, even if this were apparently true, which it could be, it is ultimately false because that falsity is seen even now in this life. In fact, with every thought you are born, right? So, the meaning of rebirth is with every thought, when you identify with the thought as me, you are born as another I, right? So, when you are completely silent, and then, like, I think we're asking, I'm not able to stay with it, let's say, right? And something comes up. What happens? You are born as a me there, right? Like you, let's say your attachment as a mother comes up, for instance, or a father comes up. Then you are born in that moment as that identity. Then the next moment you are in a work conversation and you are attached to that work identity. Then you are born as that. So you are actually born every moment in a smaller way with each thought. And then with each day you are born, because when you go to deep sleep, as we said, you are not there and then you come back. So in the same way with death and birth, you could be having the same cycle, but that's not relevant, right? Just as between two thoughts, just as between 2 days, same as between two lives, it's all a fiction.
Okay. So I think that analogy was very helpful.
Okay.
I have one question. When we say like drop me or we recognize that, who will do that? Like who will drop and who will recognize?
Nobody can drop. So it's not about dropping the me, as in you cannot drop the me.
Yeah.
It's just as I think she was asking, it is the false recognizing the false, that's all. There's nobody doing it. There is just the recognition of the false for nobody. So the idea that there is somebody here is the root of the illusion. And that same somebody says, I'm going to drop me, is continuing the same thing. Right? So that's not what it is. It's just recognizing, and that's why it's words fail there. Right? It cannot be captured in words because every word will. Language has a grammatical problem with this, right? You cannot express it without getting into this idea of a subject and an object and so on. But when the heart opens up, there is the unspoken surrendering of the false self, right? There is nobody, there is the silence there, and there is total presence there. And that silence and total presence with no center, nobody as the me owning that silence and presence is the awakening. In fact, I had kept, so we said Ashtavakra Gita, there is one nice verse in this which points to the same thing. He says, again, you have been bitten by the great black serpent of the egoism, I am the doer. Drink the nectar of wisdom, I am not the doer, and be happy. Which is what we were talking about, right? The sense of doership is what causes, I have done this, I'm the author of my actions, I will, and therefore it has a cause and effect relationship. All that comes forth and they're all apparently true. But in actuality, it's false. And but that apparent belief in it perpetuates this false self. So to drop it is to be truly happy. So he says, Aham karta iti aham mana mahakrishnaadya damshati naham karteti vishwasa amritam pitva sukhi bhava. That's the nice verse. The great black serpent is the egoism, I am the doer. When that is seen and dropped, then we are free. And it's a nice example too, because it is like the serpent, because when we say serpent, see, when there is a real snake, we don't go near it, right? So we don't need to, many times we ask the question of how do I drop the doer? Like you were asking, it's a very natural question, right? But the problem is because we don't see the danger of it. So that's why this example is a very beautiful example. When you see the danger of something, you don't ask how to drop it. It just drops, right? So the very seeing is the ending. But we have to see it as the source of all. It's like, that's why he says it's like the black serpent, right? It's that which binds you, right? Which binds us. And thinking that I'm the doer and I'm this and I'm that, and how dare he insult me, and I'm so good at it, and I need to be given credit. How much of this nonsense goes on in our head because of the sense of doership, right? And that's the poison we carry, right? Like, oh, he didn't give me good enough attention. Oh, I'm, this blah, 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 right? Like, just goes on and on and on. All of this is the poison we carry. And that poison is this, like he says, Maha Krishna Satnam. Here, Krishna means black, black serpent. So the black serpent, I am the doer, is what is making us do all this, right? I'm taking credit, I'm registering, as Nestle said, we are constantly registering them. Psychologically, I'm registering whatever you say. Oh, she praised me, that's nice. Oh, she didn't praise me enough, that's not nice. All this goes on and on and on. All of this causes so much misery, right? And we already talked about image building because of that, right? Then we build images based on that. Oh, even with our own close ones, even if it's, in fact, as I said, the more so, the closer they are. We build images so strongly, and we say, oh, she has to do this and she cannot do this, and I have to control her, and this and that, right? So much, all of this is coming forth because of the sense of identity, right? And it causes suffering, it causes pain for oneself, right? The one who controls suffers, but they don't realize it, right? And the one who is controlled also suffers, right? So all of this, when you see clearly, as he says here, when you see that it is the serpent that is causing suffering, the clarity with which you see drops it. The seeing is the ending.
How to see?
How to see? You see through the danger it poses, right? One way to see it clearly is through the suffering that it entails. See, if you look at any suffering, what is the root of suffering? And we're not talking about pain, right? Pain is different. Pain can be there. There's a, whatever, injury in the knee, there is pain. It's there. It comes and it goes. But suffering is entirely optional, right? And we take on it because of this false identification. So how do we see? We see through suffering, right? If we see that suffering is happening through this false identification, and that is true intelligence, right? Intelligence is to recognize the cause of suffering. As, I think Socrates said, life unexamined is not worth living, he said very nicely, right? If we don't examine life, then we are going to repeat the same patterns of mistakes, right? But when you examine life, you see there is suffering, and you see the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering is entirely self-inflicted. And that self-inflicted suffering is because of identity. And that identity is this doership, taking ownership of things that are happening spontaneously. There's not a single thought that I can call my own, right? That is the fact. Right? Because there is all the genetic and environmental conditioning and so many things that have contributed to every single word. As a famous comedian once said, but very insightfully, he said, people always tell me, tell in your own words. But he said, I don't have any of my own words. I just use the same dictionary. Right? So it's the same thing, right? There is no such thing as my own words. There is no such thing as my own thoughts. It's just what is, right? It's we all. So there is nothing to own as mine. So when we see that, we see the root of suffering, which is doership, the sense of doership, ownership, which is the me. And then this question is reconciled, right? So that's where it is. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Ask one more question. Yeah.
It's like the more you look at it, it's not getting lesser, it gets more. Does that mean you're doing so? You're going to ask who is the person who's asking this, but like looking into it more seems to just make that multiply, not lessen.
Multiply what?
Like the more you look inside you, the amount of analysis or the suffering, like almost that looking into you looks like a suffering in itself. Like to look in and drop it, and then at that moment, yes, but that seems to multiply the thoughts which keep coming in, at which you have to keep looking at more and more. Versus before all this, life just went on. Once in a while, you found something, you solved the problem, you moved on with your life and went on. Now it seems like it is like death by a million
That's
cuts
okay.
of every
No,
second.
I understand.
Ignorance is bliss.
Absolutely.
Ignorance is bliss. No, see, there is someone gave this
I don't know
analogy.
if it is just
No,
me, but
it's okay. See, someone gave this analogy. I think it was Ramakrishna. I don't know, but it's a good one. It's like See, if when there is um, like you were saying, this area is all forest, right? So it was very nice and foresty, and but you couldn't live in that forest, right? It looks very nice, but then when you dig it up, there is so much dirt that comes up, so much rubble that comes up, so much mess that comes up, right? For a while. And only when you clear everything out, you can actually build a house, right? So the process of going from ignorance to wisdom can be sometimes messy, and that's okay. Um, in fact, this is the simile of the famous Samudra Manthan in Bhagavatam, right? In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a famous story where the Devas and Asuras are churning the ocean of milk. All of this is symbolic, right? And you have to recognize the symbolism behind it, otherwise get we'll just get caught in the mythology of it, right? There's a milk ocean, and the Devas and the Asuras are churning. And when they churn, what comes out first? Poison. And the poison that comes out, then Shiva drinks it. And he holds it in his neck, and that's why he's called Nilakantha. And then the nectar comes out, right? So, yes, and that churning is what inquiry is, right? There is the Devas and the Asuras represent the good and the bad thoughts, which are both there in you. And they are both churning, right? And when they churn together, first all this comes up, right? It seems very messy. You would think, why am I even churning? I could, right?
But so much peaceful.
Right. But you get to the nectar only through the churning, right? The poison comes out, it's taken out, and the nectar comes out. That's one way to look at it. But
Set a fast forward button.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. The fast forward or the instant way is, which is actually in that story too, which is what symbolized by surrendering to Shiva, is that, whatever comes up, right, it's not you. Just recognize that it comes up and just surrender to the divine.
But that thought comes after a whole bunch of churning.
No, that's why you have to be alert. See, the only thing you cannot, there is no way around it, is to remain alert, right? If you are unconscious, then obviously all of this will take you for a ride. But whatever comes up, right, you recognize the suffering comes up or the thought comes up, just say, it's all coming, it's all from the ground of the divine. Surrender to the divine. So there is no need to think you are going through. The whole pointer here is there is no you going through anything. There is a physical body there, which is miraculous, right? Every one of us, the human body is miraculous. What it does is such a miracle. Thinking is another miraculous expression. That's what has built this house and these phones and all the wonderful technology we have. Everything is so all of this is an expression of the intelligence of this nature, right, which comes forth as thought. And like, for example, we have AI now, which is another level of expression of the same intelligence, which is fine, right? You can embrace it by recognizing that nature has a way of expressing intelligence in greater and greater ways. So now silicon-based products are able to even manifest greater levels of intelligence than human body. That's all great, right? But that's all an expression of the intelligence of matter, which is coming forth from the ground of awareness, consciousness. So that's what you as the body or me or anyone is, right? So there is nobody here other than the intelligence of the universe itself. And that can be seen only in an instant. It is not a progressive thing. There is no steps to it. There is no stages of it, right? Either it's like they say here, right? I think they say either you're pregnant or you're not, like that. Either you see, it's just on or off, that's it. So it's like, if you listen from, that's why we was talking about listening from the heart, right? Not try to figure it out, not try to understand it, not try to intellectualize it, not try to build a framework around it, but just listen to it and just drop. The dropping happens. You don't do the dropping even. Just there is just the dropping of the sense of self. Because right now there is nobody there other than the divine. It's not that you are going to do something to find that. It is the truth even now.
If I may explore that one more step. So earlier you talked about the snake. So you see the rope, you get afraid because
Sure.
you think it's a snake. And then something happens where the knowledge of it is not a snake comes to your mind, then you are free,
Okay.
the fear is gone. Similarly, now you're seeing the
Right.
universe, all this around us, and the act of knowing or dropping that and knowing that all this doesn't exist, or maybe it exists, but you understand your reality, that only happens when the right knowledge comes
Correct.
into your head. So, and the right knowledge is it's taking time to get there.
No, that's what I'm saying. The only difference, all you are exactly right till that point. See, just take that metaphor too. You either see the rope or the snake. It's not that you go gradually from rope to the snake, right? When
What
the
about
light,
the act of gaining that information?
the light is on, the snake is seen. The snake is not seen, right? That's it. So it is always, that's why it is now. I mean, every metaphor is limited, by the way, because that metaphor, the limitation of that metaphor is that, okay, I've seen it once and that's it, right? That's not necessarily how. Here, one has to be alert because the next moment, another rope will come, appearing as a snake. So you have to be alert every moment. But it is in the alertness of this moment that I can see, not through gathering knowledge. You see what I'm saying? The difference between that's the difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is incremental. Wisdom is instantaneous. Right? Because wisdom is love. It is clarity, it is compassion, all of that. Knowledge is necessary in functional fields. There it's like, if I want to write whatever I'm working on, robotics or whatever, there it's incremental. I cannot say that I will in one instant, that has stages, and like any field, calculus, you have to go higher calculus. Every field has build on knowledge, but that's a completely different process. That's why it's the mind or thought that works on incremental knowledge, which is necessary for functional aspects of living. But the heart is not working in incremental knowledge, it is direct wisdom, which is seeing now.
And even maybe this is related to the same thing you have been saying, which is the one who is afraid. If you inquire who is afraid, maybe it's about dropping that ego again and then realizing the commonality, the common
Correct.
subconscious layer, which is what probably you're calling as wisdom when the ego is dropped.
Yeah, so as I said, right, when you recognize anytime anything comes up that projects time, that projects a sense of oh, I need to do this, oh, it's difficult, or whatever it is, right? Just see who is this, right? And you recognize that that's just another identity that I'm carrying through believing it to be true. All there is only the thought. And when you see that and it drops, that's inquiry and that's surrender. That's what we were talking last time. It is Sharanagati. It is which are both are same. It is just recognizing that the very identification with of the sense of existence with memory is the root of ignorance. So that can be seen and dropped instantly. One more question. Thoughts are spontaneous. The moment it rises, intellect employs a judgment, good or bad, filter to either move away from the thought or to continue to indulge in it if it is a good thought. So, what is the role of the intellect? Is intellect and awareness the same or different? If so, how different? So, again, thoughts are spontaneous. The moment it rises, intellect employs a judgment as good or bad to either move away or indulge in it. So, what is the role of the intellect? Is it same as awareness or different? So, when we speak of judgment of any thought as good or bad, what is the source of judgment?
It's a false belief.
Right. Yes, but what I'm saying is that is true. But the source of judgment is knowledge, right? The memory that I have as good or bad is what judges something as good or bad. Right? The knowledge. So for example, I mean, this is a example given by many. So let's say if you are killing someone, it's considered bad. But if the same killing happens in a battlefield, it may be considered good. We even celebrate someone as a as whatever. People celebrate war heroes, right, who kill. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't want to go there. That's a different topic. I'm just saying that the same act can be seen as good or bad depending on the context. So, good or bad is a judgment made by the intellect, which is a product of, again, knowledge, right, which is memory. Awareness, can it be a product of memory or knowledge? Right? So, awareness is just the simple awareness of what is. So, including the awareness of the judgment itself. Right? So, the judgment that rises as good or bad is also happening in the light of awareness. So, awareness is therefore that in which judgment also happens. The intellect also functions, right? So, awareness is not the same as the intellect. Intellect is a product of time, product of knowledge, product of memory, and the sense of self, the me that is built, all of that together is the intellect. Whereas awareness is just the presence which is absolutely choiceless. Another way to understand this is choice is a function of memory. Any choice we make is a function of, like, I have to know something to make a choice. But awareness is choiceless. Awareness means it doesn't make any choice. So the light in this room doesn't choose anything, it just illuminates everything. It could be This paper, it could be this microphone, it could be me, it could be a piece of dirt, it could be a piece of gold. It doesn't matter. The light just illuminates everything. So awareness is of that quality. The light that illuminates everything is awareness. Whereas the moment I have judgment, then that means there is choice. And choice means there is memory, which is not awareness anymore, which is still within the realm of time. So they are different. So when we speak of, that's why it's not about the duality of good and bad is still within the realm of time and memory. So that's why even in the metaphor of that story of Bhagavatam 2, the Devas and the Asuras, they represent good and bad, the intellect. But they are both on the ground of being. So it is said that in that metaphor, in that beautiful story, the ground of churning is what's called the kurma, the tortoise, who is Narayana. And he is the ground on which both the good and the bad are there. The Devas and the Asuras are both churning on the base of the tortoise. That's the symbolism of the beautiful story, is that the ground is the same for both good and bad. So the relative of good and bad, the duality of good and bad, is only in the realm of time, memory, intellect, and all of that. But the ground is the same. When you come upon the ground, then the duality vanishes completely. Then we see the whole manifestation as perfect in its own way. And there is, of course, response to what is and actions and all the rest. But there is no hard judgment, there is no identification, there is no resistance, none of that, right? Because everyone plays a part and it goes on, so that's all. So if you take, that's why any story, I was just was thinking of a nice way to, if you look at Ramayana, for example, without Manthara, there is no Ramayana, right? The story of Ramayana, there is this person who poisons the mind of Kaikeyi to make her ask Dasharatha to send Ram to the forest. But if she hadn't done that, there is no Ramayana. There is no, Vanavas, and there is no, Sita being abducted and Ram fighting, the whole thing. So everyone plays a role, right? So you don't then recognize that everything is perfect in the ultimate sense. It's all in divine order. But it doesn't mean that you, of course, just remain passive about it. Whatever the situation is, you respond to it fully. That's all. Like in the same story, for example, as we know, when Ram is in forest, it is said that 11,000 demons come to attack Ram. Right? There is a beautiful episode in Ramayana where Shurpanakha comes and she tries to propose to Ram and Lakshman, and her nose gets cut. She goes and then she first brings all her brothers before she brings Ravana. This Khara, Dushana, and all these demons, they all come. 11,000 people come. And that's a very beautiful episode because when all of them come, Lakshmana is there. And Ram tells Lakshmana, you just be there. He says, don't bother, I'll handle them. And he kills all 11,000 demons in 1 hour, he says, Valmiki says. And the beauty in that episode, what Valmiki describes is, there was such grace in the way Ram fights that it was like poetry in motion to see Ram fight there. So that is the beauty of response to what is, right? There is no preconceived notion of right and wrong. There is just total response to what is. So Because immediately people will ask the question, if everything is in perfect order, then should I just keep quiet if something evil happens? No, that is not the answer either, right? You respond to it fully. In front of you, if something happens, there is a natural response, and that response has its own intelligence. At the same time, you don't carry it, right? That is the most important thing. We were talking about it. You just don't carry something, how dare he do it, and this and that, right? You just, if you can do something to respond to it fully, you respond to it fully. Otherwise, not, forget it and move on. But at all time, recognize that everything is in divine order and it flows in its own way. So then there is no judgment. There is only awareness, and the intelligence that comes out of awareness responds to what is. And it's not premeditated anymore. It is not conforming to any ideal, for example. It is just response to what is. That's why, for example, someone will say, you take something like non-violence, right? That binds you. If you tell yourself that I will be, because in that particular instance, the right response of Ram was violence. So any ideal is only from the intellect. Awareness has no ideal. It responds to what is. The intelligence of what is brings forth the response without any premeditation. And that is the way to live life freely. Right? I remember a quote of Nisargadatta who said very beautifully that if you are predictable, you are not free. Right?
Beautiful.
That is deep trouble for a lot of us.
So you're just
Think
bound
about,
by actions and time and
if you are predictable, you are not free.
But he didn't finish the other part. If you're not predictable, people will think you're crazy.
But the beauty of that is
That's right. That is Raviism.
is, see, the thing is, when
So
you
Trump
don't,
is free.
huh?
So Trump is free. He's not very free. Sorry.
No, I think you see, there is something called, see, in logic they have an expression. I don't want to get too technical, but if X implies Y, not Y implies
Yeah,
not
yeah.
X. Not X implies not Y. You know that. So if you're predictable, you're not free.
But converse is
Converse is not true. So that's all. I thought you would, this is symbolic logic, so I'm sure you know this, right? So because the intellect is always bringing forth ideals, what's right and wrong, good and bad, right? See, that's a difference. Even in Mahabharata, we'll see the difference between Yudhishthira and Arjuna. So Yudhishthira embodies dharma, which is right and wrong, whereas Arjuna embodies surrender, where there is no right and wrong. He just does what Krishna says. And that is the difference between, and Yudhishthira is always in suffering. He's a very pious being, but constantly suffering. But Arjuna is free. He's just happy. He's, so that is
he
the
has multiple wives. That's
yeah.
nice.
Well,
Was that
having, well,
he's like, then how?
if anything, it's difficult.
That was his
I'm sure.
point.
So in any case, the point is there is see, when you transcend this duality of right and wrong through this awareness, then there is true freedom, and that freedom responds to what is, and you will not commit anything, because there is no me. Automatically everything is right from a higher perspective. That's what matters. Not from the relative duality of right and wrong that society may say, but from the absolute standpoint, there is nobody there to manipulate, to calculate, to lie, to do whatever. All these calculations are only for the me. So all morals and injunctions are needed only for the me, and they never help anyway, because when the crux comes, they don't work. But when the me is seen as false and you respond to what is, then that freedom of response is beyond the duality, and it is always right from an absolute standpoint. And that is the action of awareness itself. So that's why awareness is at one level, see, it is the seeing that brings forth the doing. Like the earlier example we were saying, right? Like if you see a snake, the action comes spontaneously from the seeing. You don't think, and that's the me that comes and says, oh, I have to do this, oh, it's right to do this, wrong to do that. Then you are not responding fully. You are caught in the past. For you to fully respond to what is requires you to be fully present. And that being present is being choicelessly aware. When you are fully choicelessly aware, that choiceless awareness, again, language is always imperfect, then you are not choicelessly aware. There is only choiceless awareness. There is no you. There is choiceless awareness, and that choiceless awareness has the intelligence that acts.
And most of the time, then that's dharmic.
That's
The
not
choice-
most, always.
Always.
Ultimately
Correct.
dharmic.
Always.
Ultimately, in the highest sense, that's dharmic.
Dharmic.
That's
And
right.
that is also total surrendering.
That is surrender. That is why Krishna concluded Gita by saying, give up all other dharma and just surrender. That's the highest dharma. Because then when there is no center from which we are acting, there is no one to be adharmic. That's the important thing. Adharma requires a center.
But practically speaking, in that example where Rama kills all those demons, he knew he had the power to kill, so he did. But any of us, if someone is attacking us, we will either run or we will.
You do what you can do, that's all.
fight.
Yeah.
Was that?
You-
repeat the questions just in case people can.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Good. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah. No, he's asking, Ram could kill all those demons. What will we do? We do what you can do, that's all.
No, but would that, what I was trying to get at was, would that be awareness, or because we are still acting out of some past conditioning, right? Like if we are if our nature is inherently non-confrontational, we'll tend to run. If we are more bold in nature, then we will try to fight. Right?
Correct.
But that's still a result of conditioning from the past. So where is awareness here?
No,
Practically speaking.
no, that's what I'm saying. See, awareness means, see, when you see something clearly and you respond to the seeing clearly, there is nobody responding. That's the whole point here, right? Is that there is the choiceless awareness of what is. Let's say there is a danger for you. Let's say someone breaks in. If you are free completely, in the sense that you are not telling yourself, in that particular case, you will probably act correctly anyway, because in such situations, the natural instincts kick in, right? So for example, you're in the road and a car comes at you, you're going to step away quickly, right? You're not going to think at that time what to do, right? The seeing is the action, right? So you do that naturally in such life and death situations. The problem comes in other situations, right?
Where there could be a choice. In that
Yeah,
case,
exactly.
it's very clear cut. Yeah.
Correct. So when there could be, so that's when you're seeing clearly, and you are just, there is the clarity of perception. That clarity has its own action.
So,
I
so you're
mean,
saying that even though it seems like a choice, it really is not. Is
right,
that right?
right.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah. See, the before, without getting too caught in this, also the important pointer to recognize here is to see clearly that the sense of doership is bringing forth suffering. That's what we were starting with, right? The very seeing is the dropping of it. That is the most important action. And it's not an action that I do, it's the seeing that drops it. Other things flow from that, right? I mean, even at a very simple level, if you, if there is clarity that something is really bad for you, the clarity will act, right?
Those are clear cut.
But
All
that's
this
but
is
just
clear.
but
Yeah.
that's not important, so I don't want to, right, it's okay. The main point is this, the clarity with which we can see that sense of doership, as we read in this verse, right? This black snake of doership is the poison that is causing all suffering. When we see that clearly, as we would see a poisonous snake, then we don't play with it, because the reality is that there is actions happening, but there is no me to take ownership of it. This is just what is causing all the suffering.
Are you saying that it is not the response, but just the ownership of the response that we are dropping in? So the response is what it is.
Yeah.
We just don't take. So it's
Correct.
kind of an almost after the fact, or before, like that.
Yeah, there is no ownership of the response. That's it. Yeah. There is no
So the
registering.
response could be whatever it is.
The response is what is based on, that's what I was saying earlier. The response is the,
It could be the wrong response.
there's
If you
no
think
right and
about, no,
wrong.
if you think about it and you
Yeah.
use your intellect, it's something we could have thought of. If you go this way and that way, it could have been something which could have been the wrong response, which we would, if we spent that time. But if you act at that moment, it is the response, and we don't take the ownership.
Yeah,
of the
don't take,
response.
see, that begins. So when you take no ownership of anything and you drop everything, then automatically your response will be right too, because the response is always muddled by the sense of ownership, past ownership, right? When I look at you, the response, the ownership of this response is after the response, but the very response is corrupted by the ownership of the past. So to respond fully without a sense of doership is, requires me to not register anything and to drop everything. And when that response happens without the registering, then there is freedom right there. And you don't register it after the response either. Right? But it requires you to, that's why, be very alert and not, see, that's why we were again and again saying that it's not something the mind can understand. So don't try to understand it, because it becomes always a circular logic then. It's just that just the seeing that the sense of self that is being built by this constant thinking is what's causing all of this. And in reality, I can just drop it, right? There is, I mean, there is, again, every expression is flawed. It's not, I cannot drop it, it just drops, that's it, you know. A beautiful example given by Ramana Maharishi is, you go in a train, I think I've heard this example, you don't carry the luggage on your head in the train, you just drop the luggage and you're free, right? So that way, why do we carry the ownership of all of this burden of, oh, I did it and I should have done this, I could have done this, I'm What did they think? This is just complete unnecessary burden, right? Just don't try to figure it out. Just relax into dropping it. That's it. You are free. There is nobody doing anything, right? There is just a doing. It happens. Whatever happened perfectly. And all that has happened so far has brought you and me to this moment. And therefore it is perfect. There is nothing to look back and second guess. Not a thing.
And every point will be like that.
Every point is like that. So fully accept and just drop, and there is freedom. That's it.
How much does that equate to day-to-day things, like something as mundane as shopping for clothes or shoes? We often compare this, that, and whatnot, right? Like, should we not be doing that?
No. There's no should or should not.
No, should in the sense, like, does it relate to this? That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's all, well, it will fall into its place. All these so-called mundane things too. You don't have to,
So no need to distinguish.
no need to speculate about it. No need to, the needs fall away. Then unnecessary entanglements fall away. See, so many things we add to our life because we add complexity to our own life, and then we work to fulfill that complexity.
The
Like-
problem may not arise. Maybe you would just drop shopping.
See, I know, for example, there was another great.
Not
No.
for the sake of shopping, but there are things like even like milk, right? Organic, non-organic. There's so many varieties. What do you do, right? So
Yeah.
it's like it comes up sometimes. Sometimes you don't care, but sometimes it does. So
Whatever is the best you can do, you do. That's it, and forget about it.
Be aware.
You just want to see. The thing is, we need very little things to live a peaceful life, right? So don't need to have so many things we think are necessary. And so we simplify life and then engage your time and energy then in that which can express your fullness of creativity and potential, right? Then there is freedom in that, right? So nobody, see, like, anything you get gives you very little happiness, right? And then it goes away. Whereas anything you do for others, you serve, you express creativity, that is what really makes a difference to society, right? To make, even at the societal level. So all that will fall in place when we get out of this trap of the me.
So if we bring in animals, for example, lion eats a deer, for example. They gets a thought of eating food. It kills and eats.
Correct.
So is there? There is no suffering there. There is just pain.
That's
because
it.
There's a natural thought that came to it.
That's it.
It acted on it. It ate
Yeah.
it. So, but unlike that, what we do is we have more meaning on top of it, saying that I want to eat better food, or so that better thing, or that is what we are identifying on top of eating. That is the extra part we do.
Correct.
And all you're saying, the essence of what you're saying is, if we drop that top part, is that psychological layer. That is what we need to drop, and the rest will have to happen because
Yes.
it's not your
Exactly.
your effort that made you bring here. That you are
Exactly.
here. That has to happen by itself.
Exactly. Right.
It's only that
You could say that.
imaginary thing. on
That's
top.
right. Yeah, response to, see, what, if you're hungry, you eat, right? And of course, you eat what you can eat, and you have your own conditioning, and you like what you like, you eat. And you forget about it. That's it, right? Don't have to think too much about it. Just, yeah, as you say, it's like a lion eating a gazelle. Just eats, goes, right? I mean, we eat what we eat based on our conditioning. And of course, as we said, right, uh, when there is awakening and there is sensitivity, that also changes the kind of food we eat and the way in which we interact with even animals. Everything changes. But beyond that, yeah, there is nothing to overthink any of these things. Right? I mean, the primary thing is that's why um, the primary and only pointer is to recognize through inquiry that the fiction that is being carried as the center, as the me, is the root of all suffering. It requires validation, it craves recognition, it wants praise, it fears insult, it compares, it is jealous, it is envious. All of this is coming forth from this one source, which is the sense of me that is identifying itself as the owner of the experiences and the doer of the actions. In reality, experiences happen, actions happen. So that's why, as he says, and nicely Ashtavakra says, that's the black serpent. And you step away from that, all else falls in place. We don't have to overthink anything else. Just everything will fall in place.
Yeah. It's our own interpretation of that.
That's
Everything else will continue the same way.
Correct.
It's our interpretation of it.
That's it.